The final approach is actually a series of approaches, and that's the critical theory approach. This is, like I said, sort of an umbrella term that also includes a number of different perspectives. I'm going to try to explain this in a way that differs from your text. And I think it's in part because of some of the long-standing members of international relations tend to see it this way, but also I want you to know that it's not nearly as unmainstream or non-mainstream as the author of your text would like you to believe. First, critical theory examines social injustice and inequality. So what it's trying to do is expose hidden relationships between the powerful and the powerless, and that power is a social relationship, even if it's based on, material reality. So even if it's based on someone has a lot of money and someone doesn't, that power is a social relationship. There's a social aspect to this inequality. And according to your text, critical theory advocates radical or revolutionary solutions. I don't really think that that's a fair criticism or description of critical theory, in that what critical theorists are trying to do is use different sets of those reading glasses to examine power relationships in the modern world system, and also provide a deep historical and social context for those relations. But I don't think there's anything radical with that, because if you think about it, if we said international relations are based, heavily influenced by domestic politics in the individual countries involved, okay? The discourse used, or the words used to define the others, whether you're an identity perspective, a realist, or a liberal, the words, the terms, the processes used to describe other side or their side, all comes from a certain place, and that's defined internally. And you have to have a thorough understanding of the history of those concepts and ideas before you really can understand the larger international relations problem. Then you have to also look at the long historical relationship between these two countries, their power relationships, and the other side, and how it views you. So I think what critical theory does and provides us is a more complex and a very valuable way of examining the interrelationships between different state actors and asking important questions about our assumptions of the other countries, or assumptions of each other. So let's say we're talking about U.S.-Canadian relations. We have to understand the other side. We have to understand the history of our relationship. So, for example, one of the things I deal with in my study of media policy is, to many Americans, people from the United States, they think, oh, what's wrong with our say television programming going out and being the dominant programming done or aired on, say, Canadian television networks? Well, okay, maybe nothing, but now put yourself in the shoes of a Canadian who's also an actor, who's also an artist, and trying to get important work about Canada on the same television on limited airspace. So it would be easy, if we look at the power imbalance between the two as far as media production, for the United States media to overwhelm Canada. And so what Canada did was set up laws to protect Canadian voices and Canadian programming on Canadian media. Okay? Understanding the long-standing historical relationship between the two countries, understanding the cultural beliefs about the two, trying to preserve those in the historical and social context is all important. And so I find it disturbing that a major text in international relations would be so dismissive of critical theory, because I think what critical theorists do is provide a deeper level of analysis than some of the traditional perspectives, and might actually provide solutions to long-standing problems. And understanding, we say power, 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 power if you're a realist, or relationship, relationship, relationship if you're a liberal, and the self, the self, the self, the nation, we're this, they're that, we're this, they're that if you're an identity perspective person. Critical theorists aren't necessarily worried about any of these. What they're worried about is seeing how terms get defined, what those relationships are, and uncovering maybe relationships we hadn't even thought about or known about. So, in providing a deep historical and social context of this relationship. So, it's actually trying to provide as much information as possible to looking at or examining a problem. So, I'm not nearly as dismissive of critical theory as perhaps the author of your